Hello diamonds, and welcome back to another video. As you can tell from the title of the video, I am going to cover a video that's been quite requested. Everything that you need to know before you have an extension done. Tips as well. So since doing our extension, we've had some questions about sort of what to do, what to consider and things, and I've heard some really horror stories about people doing an extension and it just turned out awful or took way too long, or their money got taken and nothing in return. I've heard some really bad stories, so I'm here to share with you how you can avoid some of that stuff. Basically a step-by-step guide on what you need to do before you get an extension done. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So we start off with the first point, what we did, which is to ascertain like rough prices for what you want to do. So this is just so you know how much you need to save up and how much funds you need to gather together. So this is really difficult to get obviously an actual cost, because at this point you probably don't have your design finalized and you don't have obviously all your like structural measurements or anything like that. Probably, as I said, it's just rough costs. So you could find out, like say speak to a builder, like, and ask them how much do you charge per square meter, because most builders tend to charge per square meter. If there's an extension that you particularly like that a friend's done or whatever that you've been to, find out how much they paid, and just to start to ascertain like rough costs. I think that goes a long way, because like for us, we did have a friend that lives in our area and then we knew how much they paid, so that gave us a really good idea, as well as we did get a builder in to give us a quote. But that was very rough, as I said, because we didn't have everything set in stone yet. So that gave us at least a figure to work towards, like an amount to start actually saving up towards. So the next thing I would say that we did was find an architect. But actually what I will say is ascertain if you need an architect, because I know somebody that did an extension, they didn't use an architect and it went really well, and they wouldn't recommend using an architect. They actually thought and using an architect is actually a waste of money. I know, believe it or not, they think it's far better to use a structural engineer than it is to actually have an architect and a structural engineer. But I think this is completely up to you. How you can tell if you need an architect, actually, I'll give you some ideas. Basically, if you've got a design and you obviously just want it, you want someone to bring it to life, you want someone to share your ideas with, then consider using an architect. Personally, we use an architect because obviously we've never done an extension before. We just wanted someone to share ideas with, see what we can and can't do, bounce off ideas, and obviously get suggestions as well. So we thought it was worthwhile, but obviously you might not, so it's completely up to you. And we used an architect that's local to our area because we just felt she had more local knowledge, so she knows what would be approved by the council, what wouldn't be, what's within permitted development, and so forth. So it was really handy having her. What you find is that some builders actually do not quote without an actual architect's plan. So one builder that came highly recommended, we asked him to come over and he refused to quote us without an architect's plan. That's one of the reasons that drove us to get an architect, actually. I guess if you want to like open yourself up to wider quotes and just so you can see your plan easily, then definitely worth getting an architect. And then the next thing I would say is you need to check your council's regulations. So within each council, they have their own set of rules and regulations. In our council, for instance, actually, and I think most councils as well, we can extend up to 3 meters without actually getting permission. So we literally could start the extension as soon as possible, because we don't need to apply for permission if it was less than 3 meters. As soon as we wanted to go to the side, we'd have to get planning permission. If you want to go past 3 meters, we'd have to get planning permission. So obviously you need to know that. An architect can share that with you, or going on the council's website or give them a ring and they'll be able to share with you what's within permitted development. So permitted development is what it's permitted, you don't need to actually ask for permission for it, whereas if it's not permitted development, then you need to apply for planning permission for it. Initially we actually were going to just do a 3 meter extension just to avoid all of that fuss, because you do have to pay to actually put your planning permission in. But then actually speaking to friends who did their planning permission and they went out by like 4 meters, they were just saying how it's absolutely worth it and it doesn't take that long to get your feedback. I think it's like 8 to 12 weeks. So we thought actually we'll just do it. Our architect did that for us, so she submitted our planning, and then we just had access to the portal to keep track of its progress. When they came back to us with things that we needed to change, so for instance we were not allowed to go up to the actual boundary of our neighbour, we had to come in and meet her, which was so frustrating. The architect changed the plan and resubmitted it for us. So yeah, that kind of covered 2 points. So my fourth point was actually applying for planning permission. So you can apply yourself or your architect can, as I just said, like our architect did it for us, but you obviously can do it yourself as well. Okay, so what we did then, the next thing after that, our planning had come through, so we were like, yay! Finally, we can get quotes, we can get actual proper quotes, we can move forward with this. And then, some of the builders are like, I can't quote you without a structural spare measurements. I'm like, that's another person that we need there. Speaking of structural engineers, some structural engineers, like the one that we actually use, we found out they actually does the architectural drawings as well. So do check, you might be able to get a package in one. But anyway, so we found a structural engineer, and then he came over and did all the like measurements. I went off and did his calculations and set us his sheets of calculations and so forth. He also did some extra drawings, structural engineer drawings, I guess. And this is essentially for the steel beam. So basically in an extension, most extensions have a steel beam. This is where the house is supported, or the building structure I should say, is supported by the steel beam. Those steel beams, you can't just put any odd steel beam. It has to be one that can support your house, one that can support your new structure. So that needs to be carefully calculated. And then once that's carefully calculated, builders can then use that to know which beams to purchase and so forth. Anyway, we finally got that, and then we were able to send the architect's design and the structural engineer's calculation off to the builders. So yeah, so that's it. So some builders will actually work without the structure there, but a lot of them I think now do request that. Makes their job easier. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is builders, and this is where things can either go really bad or really good. So the builder that you pick is so important. I cannot stress that enough. Like, this is the bit where you should absolutely take your time. Like, the builder you pick is one of the most important things about an extension. I would say go with the builder that either has been recommended or you've previously used for some sort of work before, and you know what they're like, what their character's like, and you've seen their work. And if for whatever reason they're not recommended by someone you know, still do a lot of research online to make sure that the recommendations are absolutely true. And don't be afraid to ask the builder if you can go to his projects and see it. Most builders shouldn't mind you going. They can arrange with previous customers to actually let you go and see their property. So don't be afraid to do that. Like, literally take your time and make sure you make a proper informed decision about your builder and you feel peace about the builder. Because I've heard of people where, like, literally I think the builder took £50,000 of their money and barely raised the actual extension up. So imagine, for £50,000 you want to see the erection of a building and more. Obviously, also another story of this family where they've literally tried to get the extension done for like a year, and there's been problem after problem after problem because of their builder just isn't great. There's builders that just don't turn up. They'll say they'll turn up and they won't turn up for 2-3 days and come back, and it just slows the process down. And there's another builder that we very nearly used, but from when we went to see his project and how long that took, and then from speaking to him, we just got the feeling that this guy is slow. If you've got all the patience, like, extensions already test someone's patience, never mind having your patience tested further. So if you've got all the patience in the world, fine, but we just felt like, nope, we need someone that will come in, do it quick and efficient, and we can trust that they will turn up and that they won't rip us off, and that our money will actually go into the extension and not off wherever they've gone. So yeah, I couldn't stress that enough. Do your due diligence. Like, and also another thing I've heard that we got advised was, normally good builders are not instantly available. If they are, it might just be by off chance, or they take more than one job and they can manage that. But usually, like, a builder, if they say to you, I'll be available in like 3 months, that's fine. Just be patient. At least you know that they do working somewhere, they're quite good and stuff. So basically, I would say be patient. Don't expect the day you get your plans back and stuff to start an extension like the next week, because then you have to think, how come this builder's available? Is it just by off chance that he just finished a project, or why has he not got any future bookings? Like, what's going on? Look out for any red flags basically on a builder. Like, I couldn't stress it enough. Literally, like, all the horror stories that I've read, it all points to the builder of choice. So I couldn't stress that point enough. Like, our builder, like, thank God, absolutely amazing. Like, we've had little nigglets here and there, but it's nothing to like shout home about. It's nothing to rage about. They've literally turned up, they've done what they need to do, they've done what they said they would do. They only ask for the payments once they've completed a certain piece of work. They don't ask for it all up front. They communicate well. Like, on to my last 3 points. So plan some contingency into your completion date and completion budget. Things can creep up, like for instance when they start digging up your foundation, for whatever reason you've got really poor soil, which is something that obviously you don't have control over, and neither does a builder. If you've got really poor soil and it costs them to try and rectify and build the foundation on that, then obviously your price will be a little bit more. So there's just hidden costs, or like where your waste pipes are and things like that. There's stuff that you might not necessarily know that you're going to end up paying for, but you might end up paying for, and just have a little bit of contingency in there, especially in your budget, and then contingency in your time as well. If a builder says it will take 2 months, take that with a pinch of salt and add like a month on top, just for your own peace of mind. That's what I think, that's what we've done, and that's why we're still quite calm. And though right now we're ready for it to be finished and done, but we're getting there. And then once you actually about to start, you need to apply for something called like building control inspections. This is basically where your council or a private company that works on behalf of your council will come out and actually inspect everything that the builder is doing. So once they've done the foundation, they'll inspect it, tick it off, or if they've got any issues, they'll raise them. You have to pay for this service, but you have to do this service in order to do your extension. It's also for your peace of mind, because then you know that you've erected a building that's stable, because it has been obviously being checked by people that actually know what all of that means. Because I just see bricks, but there's more to it, of course. We went through a private company because it was just quick, because we didn't organise it in time, so this was our fault. So I'd say also try get it organised as soon as possible. And then finally, I would say is you just need to decide where you're going to live. So you could literally go and stay in a serviced accommodation, hotel, whatever you fancy. Or you could do what we did and live through it all, which I know a lot of families do that as well. So it's just completely up to you really, how patient you are, what you feel comfortable with. There's pros and cons. Pros of living on site is that you're more involved in all the daily decisions, because there's like sometimes there's like little niglet of decisions. How far should this skylight be? Like little decisions that you can make in the day. So I would say that's the benefit of living on site. You kind of are more involved in the decisions, and obviously it's more cost effective. But the downside living on site is that obviously you'd have to use a temporary kitchen, so they might plug your cooker in if it's electric and give you some sort of water supply, or otherwise you'd have to wash up in the bathroom, like wash your dishes and stuff in the like bathtubs. Those are things to like consider. And obviously if you live away from the property, you don't get to obviously be in the daily decision unless you turn up to it every day, or at least frequently anyway, just to keep an eye on things. The benefit of that is that you don't then have to go through all the hassle of like living without like a kitchen or a boiler for a short period of time. So I think that's something to weigh up and just see. And obviously if you've got like little kids, I guess you probably will definitely want to move out of the house. Another tip that I would say is when it comes to getting your quote for the extension, have it in writing. It's just better, and have it thoroughly in writing, everything that's included, every element of it. So yeah, that's the main prerequisites, I would say. Would I recommend having an extension? 100%, like 100%. If you can afford it, and if you've got patience, and if you can find a good builder, then it's absolutely worth it. And please feel free to thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe of course if you are new to the channel and would like to see more about extension. And we also create lifestyle content, so we do travel videos when it's safe to travel, and relationship videos. So feel free to subscribe if you're interested. See ya.